Are we expecting a little bit too much out of Arch Manning in 2025, or is he the best quarterback in the SEC this year? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. All right, I want to dive into this because we're into list season. We're starting to see a lot of folks put out their quarterback lists and rankings. And so I want to start here. Andy Staples of On3 this week, they put out his top 10 quarterbacks in college football. And here's where Andy ranks the SEC quarterbacks. He has got, and we'll work backwards here, former Georgia quarterback Carson Beck, now at Miami, comes in at number 10. Darian Mensah at Duke comes in at 9. He's the transfer from Tulane. Sam Leavitt, the quarterback at Arizona State, he's back at 8. Drew Aller at Penn State, he's back at 7. John Mateer coming in at number 6, the Oklahoma quarterback who transferred in from Washington State and has followed his offensive coordinator Ben Arbuckle. So very productive last year. Then we get Garrett Nussmeier at 5 from LSU, and into the rest of Andy's top 5. He's got Arch Manning at Texas at 4, Cade Klubnik of Clemson at 3, Lenora Sellers of South Carolina number 2, and DJ Lagway at Florida coming in at number 1. Here's where the debate really starts to pick up on, okay, you look at Andy's list and you go, are you going in with skins on the wall, or are you going with potential? And obviously skins on the wall, guys like Garrett Nussmeier, Lenora Sellers have those skins on the wall because they played all last year as the starters. DJ Lagway was a backup to start the year, became the starter by backstretch of the season. And then, of course, Arch Manning, spot started once or twice, but that was kind of it. It was Quinn Ewers was the starter at Texas. And so this is where it gets really hard to rank these guys. And let's just look at the stats. Garrett Nussmeier is the lone returning 4,000-yard passer, 32 total touchdowns last year. His numbers are phenomenal. But when you look at going into the season, do you put him ahead of Arch Manning or behind Arch Manning? And you look at a lot of the Heisman sports books that with the Heisman odds, they basically put Arch and Nussmeier 1 and 2. They think that those two guys have the best chance to win. Obviously, LSU's had 2 Heisman Trophy winners in recent years, and Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow. And Arch, the hype and everything that surrounds him, if he has just a really good year at Texas and they get to the playoff, Arch is going to be a Heisman finalist. It's the Manning name is going to carry a lot with that. But it's interesting that Andy is buying into DJ Lagway more at Florida as the number 1, and then Lenora Sellers at number 2. And I like both those guys. When you look at what Lenora Sellers did last year, 2,500 passing yards, 670 rushing yards, 25 total touchdowns. Yeah, Sellers was great. The win over Clemson, the win over A&M, I mean, he was outstanding. But then you look at DJ Lagway, 1,900 passing yards, 12 touchdown passes, and some people a little bit leery about the interceptions and the turnovers. But again, if that's what Andy is this where you put these guys right now going into this season, or is this a projection of where you think they'll be at the end of the year? And if that's the case, I mean, Lagway, could Florida and South Carolina be playing for an SEC championship this year? Certainly that could be in the cards if both those guys live up to, where Andy Staples has them. But I wanted to contrast this with Bud Elliott's list. Now, Bud Elliott over at CBS Sports, Cover 3, he listed his top 10 returning quarterbacks. And I guess the requirement here is, I guess it's you're the starter last year. But he's got a little bit different. He's got John Mateer at number 10, Haynes King from Georgia Tech at number 9, former A&M quarterback, Sam Leavitt at 8, Damon Williams from Washington at 7, Lenora Sellers at 6, Cade Klubnik at 5, Baylor quarterback Sawyer Robertson at 4, who just got lit up by LSU in the Texas Bowl. Drew Aller of Penn State at 3, and then he's got Garrett Nussmeier of LSU 2 and DJ Lagway 1. No sign of Arch Manning on this list. So as he says, top 10 returning quarterbacks, well, I guess you could make a case for, this means returning starters, I guess you assume. But Damon Williams, you look at him last year at Washington, he didn't start every game at Washington. Started, I think, the last 2 games there for him against Oregon and Louisville. But I don't know. It's just an interesting way to phrase it and say the top 10 returning quarterbacks, because Arch Manning is a returning quarterback. He's just not a returning, quote unquote, full-time starter. But this is where the debate gets really interesting, because I've seen a lot of people just projecting. They think Arch Manning's just going to be awesome, and that Texas is just going to pick up from where they've been the last couple of years, and that's making the playoff under Steve Sarkisian. But Texas loses a lot, and I've brought this up. I mean, supporting cast, when you talk about Jake Majors and Kelvin Banks and all those Matthew Golden at receiver, I mean, Texas lost a lot to graduation and the NFL draft. So Arch is really going to have to elevate. Now, the run game, I think, will be very good for Texas, but Arch is really going to have to elevate those around him to live up to the hype. But, this is where the question I pose. Are we expecting a little bit too much of Arch Manning? Like, should he be centered as a top 5 quarterback in college football right now? And that's where the debate between Staples and Elliott gets interesting. For saying returning, or just saying top 10 quarterbacks, period. Is Arch Manning right now a top 5 quarterback in college football? Well, skins on the wall say, 900 passing yards, 100 rushing yards, 9 passing touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns. It was a nice season, but it was as a part-time starter / backup. So, look, it's just, like I said, this is list season. This is talking season. This is the time of year where everybody's kind of throwing around, all the different, what do you value most? But certainly, when you look at what Arch, the possibilities of being a Manning and the capabilities of what he could bring, yeah, I get why everybody's buying into the hype. But I've had a few people bring up, what about some of the other quarterbacks? What about Taylon Green at Arkansas? Are we not giving him enough credit? And back in that Bobby Petrino system with 3,100 passing yards, 600 rushing yards, 23 total touchdowns last year. They've added some new pieces. We'll see what that receiving core looks like for Arkansas, but certainly Arkansas could be right back. They could be in the conversation if Taylon Green elevates this year. Yeah, I think Arkansas is a team to maybe keep an eye on. And look, what's the ceiling for Arkansas? Maybe 8-4. But if Taylon Green has a phenomenal year, I mean, maybe a Heisman invite if he takes that, if he has like a Johnny Manziel type year, or just absolutely electric. So anyway, just putting his name out there and a few other ones to keep an eye on. Look, I'm doing this for our buddy Zach Blackery, Locked On Auburn. Jackson Arnold is a name you got to keep an eye on. I mean, he was a former 5-star recruit, had all those injuries at wide receiver last year at Oklahoma. So I don't think we got to see the real Jackson Arnold. He did use his legs to beat Alabama, so that was a marquee win for him. But what does he look like in the Hugh Freeze system with all those receivers like Eric Singleton and Cam Coleman and all those pieces that Auburn has? Jackson Arnold is a name that I think, maybe we have to pay attention to and see what it's like coming out of, spring ball and heading into fall ball. Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt, as good as he was last year, can he elevate even more? That's an interesting one. Bo Perbula at Mizzou, where do you rank him? Could he take this league by storm? I saw Eli Drinkwitz talking this past week saying their goal is to get back to, another 10-win season and make the playoff. Bo Perbula, if he lives up to the hype, could be that. Gunnar Stockton at Georgia, if he wins that starting job, all expectations are that he's going to have Georgia right back in the national championship picture. Right now, you wouldn't rank Gunnar Stockton among the top 10 best quarterbacks in the league, but by year's end, could he be? Sure. And that's all I'm making the case for some of these guys. Austin Simmons at Ole Miss. Look, Lane Kiffin's been pretty damn productive with quarterbacks when you look at what he's had. Got the most out of Jackson Dart these past couple of years. Before that, Matt Corral. So Austin Simmons could certainly elevate. And then you got some other ones on the outside. I mean, Marcel Reed at Texas A&M. nice dual threat. Showed his leg, showed his arm off last year. Who wins it? Is it Ty Simpson at Alabama? Could he have a game manager / national championship, take care of the football and, get Alabama to the playoff, play for a national championship? Sure. Can he play Matt Jones-esque football? Perhaps. So anyway, just putting it out there. Just think it's an interesting debate to have because I've just seen so many people hyping up Arch Manning, and yet, what do you value at this time of year? Do you value skins on the wall and what guys have done already? Or do you put more stock in potential and guys who have not done it yet, but are about to get their chance to prove what they can do? Nico Iamaleava, another one we left out, 5-star quarterback at Tennessee, who, by the way, is going to throw for a ton of yards in the Josh Heupel system. And then Blake Shapen, probably the more one of the least talked about guys. He's back at Mississippi State for another year. 4 years at quarterback, throwing for 6,500 yards and 44 passing touchdowns. That's a dude to pay attention to. He might elevate Mississippi State. Now, look, I think elevating Mississippi State is maybe 7-5, best case scenario, but that would be a great step forward for Jeff Lebby. But again, just kind of throwing out there the idea of where do you rank quarterbacks this time of year and what do you value most? Do you value what a quarterback has done, or do you value the intangibles and, upside and say this guy is going to elevate and be awesome? And, Arch Manning, like we said, the hype is there, but can he back it up? And is the Steve Sarkisian system just that good that plug and play any quarterback can be productive? And, Quinn Ewers, was he productive just because of the Steve Sarkisian system? And at another school, we wouldn't have known who he was. Anyway, just an interesting debate. All right, when we return here on Locked On SEC, we will get into some SEC football news, some transfer portal news, and much more coming your way here in just a second. But first, I want to remind you guys, the NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. And look, you're going to love how FanDuel is going to make it so easy for you, whether you're picking your favorite team or you want to get into the player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways for you to bet your favorite props. And after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay with a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com. If you never signed up with them before, go claim your $250 in bonus bets. That is at FanDuel.com. Get in for the start of the NBA postseason. We're along here, Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And I want to dive back into it, guys, because we have got some news happening around the SEC in terms of football portal movement. We have got some names moving around out there. So let's dive into it, as we got to start over at Missouri, as Missouri defensive end Ja'Kai Lang is going to be looking to play elsewhere next year. He took to social media to share the news that he is entering the NCAA transfer portal. He leaves Mizzou after 2 seasons, has 3 seasons of eligibility remaining. He did not make an appearance in 2023, took a red shirt, extended his college football eligibility to 2027. Last season, he played in 12 games for Mizzou, recorded 13 tackles, 7 solo, 3 tackles for a loss, 24 yards lost. So came to Columbia out of high school in the state of Missouri, was a 3-star, number 16 player from the state of Missouri. And Mizzou, they've already wrapped up their spring practice. So he and other undergrads will have to wait until that April 16th official portal date, but he has made it known he is entering the portal. So we'll see where Ja'Kai Lang ends up. Meanwhile, over at Florida, one of their defensive backs is hitting the transfer portal. Redshirt freshman safety Gregory Smith III announcing he will enter the portal. Leaves Florida after his first spring practice. 6'4", 217-pound defensive back, former 4-star recruit, will have 4 years of college eligibility remaining, and had a ton of offers coming out of high school from the state of Florida. Will officially enter the portal on April 16th when it opens for everyone, but appeared in 5 games last year for Florida. including their bowl game against Tulane. He had 5 tackles, 1 pass breakup in those 5 games. And that'll be his one and only season at Florida. So we'll see where Gregory Smith ends up. So that's what's happening in the portal for football. Some other football news and notes over at Texas. Steve Sarkisian and his team, they are trying to get back to the playoff for the 3rd straight year. On Tuesday, Steve Sarkisian telling reporters that Texas is going to be looking to solidify a couple of pieces in this upcoming spring portal window. He said defensive tackle, tight end, and wide receiver are 3 positions that they are looking to shore up. They lost a lot from those spots this offseason. Of course, Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden going pro at wide receiver. Gunnar Helm, their big-time tight end, is heading to the NFL. And on the interior D-line, all 3 of Texas' top leaders in snaps last year, Vernon Broughton, Alfred Collins, Jermaine Lowell, they have all moved on. So Steve Sarkisian saying, it's not a secret. We will look at the portal, but I'm not going to take a guy that's just a number. I want a guy who fits, a guy who fit what you're trying to do. So keep an eye out for that when the portal opens. Meanwhile, over at Alabama, trying to figure out what will happen at the quarterback position for the Crimson Tide. And Alabama, of course, replacing Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, Austin Mack, and Keelon Russell, all battling it out. That competition is expected to go into the fall. They may not even announce a starter for week 1 next year at Florida State. They probably will. But Chris Lowe from ESPN was in Tuscaloosa this week and shared his thoughts on the competition. He said he believes Ty Simpson is best positioned to win the job, but that Austin Mack has real support from some folks in that locker room. He said Keelon Russell is a bit of a wild card. So he's the most talented passer in the room, but he is a true freshman going through his first spring camp, so he will need some seasoning. Ty Simpson, of course, been considered the favorite because of just his, been around a while. But Austin Mack, he started his career at Washington, followed Kalen DeBoer to Alabama last offseason, was recruited by Ryan Grubb, who is the new OC at Alabama. And of course, Keelon Russell was the number 2 player in the country this past recruiting class and is an early enrollee, getting to learn the Alabama system and all that. So A-Day is set for this weekend, although it's going to be a little bit of a revamp type spring game, spring glorified practice, if you will. I don't know if we're going to get much of a look on those quarterbacks. And by the way, they canceled the national televised broadcast on it. So unless you attend, you're not going to really get a set of eyes on any of those quarterbacks. But we'll get the latest from reports from folks who are there. But certainly that's one of the biggest storylines in the SEC to watch throughout this offseason is who will win that Alabama starting quarterback job. Meanwhile, over at Mizzou, that quarterback battle going on as they look to replace Brady Cook, who's been the guy the last few years. We know Drew Pine entered the transfer portal recently and announced he was transferring to Bowling Green. Well, on Tuesday, Eli Drinkwitz sharing his thoughts on Bo Pribula, the transfer from Penn State, and Sam Horn. He said Sam Horn and Bo Pribula have separated themselves as the leading contenders for the job. Did praise Matt Zollers as well. But Sam Horn was a highly touted prospect in that 2022 class, was also a pitcher for the Mizzou baseball team, had Tommy John surgery, missed all of last year. So, look, Bo Pribula is the favorite. We expect he's going to be a starter, but Drinkwitz can't just give it to him. He's got to let him earn it. So they got to act like job's still very much up for grabs. Over Tennessee, they have replaced their canceled Nebraska home-and-home series with an ACC foe. Of course, if you remember, Tennessee was supposed to have an upcoming home-and-home series against Nebraska, but the Cornhuskers backed out and decided to pay a hefty buyout fee to the Vols. Well, they left a hole on their schedule for 2026 and 2027. In a release on Wednesday, the Vols announced that Virginia Tech will play them with a game in Atlanta in 2026, and then they will host the Yellow Jackets at Neyland Stadium in 2027. Danny White, of course, took a shot at Nebraska when that game got canceled, but he did praise Georgia Tech in his announcement, saying, after Nebraska canceled the series, our main focus was to secure another home-and-home matchup with an opponent from a Power Four conference, which seemed improbable at the time, but I sincerely appreciate Georgia Tech's athletic director in modifying their schedule to make this series possible. Look forward to seeing plenty of orange in Atlanta in 2026. So Tennessee will visit Georgia Tech on September 12th, 2026. And then the return trip to Neyland will be September 11th, 2027. Tennessee leads the all-time series against Georgia Tech, 25-17-2. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. When we return, we will get you caught up on the latest with the SEC basketball portal. Some movement there. We'll talk about that next. All right, rolling along here, Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. We talked a little on the couple moves on the football side of thing in the portal. We'll get to some SEC basketball portal movement as well. But first, want to mention Florida. Their comeback win over Houston delivered some big-time ratings, best national championship ratings in a game since 2019. And, look, the Gators, they got it done. Had a flair for the dramatic throughout their run in this SEC tournament with staging comebacks left and right. Gators were down 12 early in the second half against Houston, roared back, and Walter Clayton Jr. making the big shots and doing what they needed to do. But the comeback win delivered an 18.1 million viewers on CBS, which was up 22%. It was the most watched championship game since 2019 when Virginia beat Texas Tech in overtime. Florida Houston didn't need overtime to deliver those great ratings. Battle peaked with 21.1 million viewers watching that game unfold. The Final Four weekend averaged 16.4 million viewers for all three games. That was up 21%, and the best Final Four weekend ratings in 8 years. So CBS, TBS, TNT, True TV, they were all up this year. So congrats to the folks in San Antonio. Did a great job with the national championship. I did want to mention Bucky McMillan, the new head coach at Texas A&M. We didn't mention him on the show. He was hired, was introduced this week, the former Samford coach, 41 years old, spent the last 5 years at Samford, and he's bringing Bucky ball to College Station. They're all excited. He was on Paul Feinbaum earlier this week, said, look, we know it's football country in the Southeast, and no one loves football more than me, but for basketball, it's not good enough just to be successful. We got to make it entertaining, where the fans say, hey, win, lose, or draw, I got to go see that. Bucky ball will arrive in College Station this fall. We'll see what Bucky McMillan brings to SEC basketball later this year. All right, other portal news, or hoops portal news, Alabama reportedly will lose Jaron Stevenson to the portal. Ford put the do not contact tag on his distinction. It was a four-star guard signed with Alabama in 2023, plays high school ball in North Carolina. 6'11" forward, played in 74 games across 2 seasons with the Tide. Will have 3 years to play at his next school. 37 games this past year, averaged 5 points a game, 3 rebounds. So was a nice, bench piece for Alabama. The space the floor did struggle quite a bit over his final 4 games with the Tide, playing 30 minutes, scoring 10 points against Florida in the SEC tournament. Played no more than 19 minutes in Alabama's 4 March Madness games. Over at Auburn, Ja'Kai Howard, freshman forward, he will enter the portal. Was a 4-star recruit, number 70 overall player in the class of 2024. Played in 21 games as a true freshman, averaged over 4 points and 1 rebound per game. Played 11 of 18 SEC regular season games off the bench. As the best game in SEC play came in Auburn's loss to Texas A&M, where he played 12 minutes, finished with 4 points and 4 rebounds. Mississippi State, they will lose breakout forward Keyshawn Murphy to the transfer portal. He announced on Wednesday he will enter the portal. Put in his message, first and foremost, want to thank God. Want to take a moment to express my gratitude to Mississippi State. Have great bonds on and off the court, but he's entering the portal. He'll have 1 year of eligibility remaining. Played in 34 games this past year. Averaged 11.5 points a game with 7 rebounds. So big-time player there hitting the portal. We'll see where he ends up. Mizzou forward Josh Gray, he is entering the portal. 7-foot senior from Brooklyn, averaged 3 points and 5 rebounds in 33 games for Mizzou this year. Helped the Tigers, of course, have a nice season. Go 22-12 overall, 10-8 in the SEC. See where he ends up. Florida basketball, an interesting announcement made that they will receive $1 million from a booster after winning the national championship. NIL Collective Florida Victorious announced Wednesday that Gator booster Gary Condren will give $1 million to the basketball program. His former pitcher with the Florida baseball team helped lead to the renovations at Florida Ballpark. They renamed it Condren Family Ballpark in 2022. His $8 million donation renamed the stadium, and apparently he's got a lot of money. So we'll see if that helps Todd Golden build up this roster moving forward. Meanwhile, over at Texas, Trey Johnson, he is moving on to go pro. He announced a couple days ago, the SEC Freshman of the Year, that he is heading into the NBA draft, expected to be a lottery pick. Over at Arkansas, Duthiero has decided to declare for the NBA draft. Stepped up for Arkansas in a big way this year, averaged 15 points per game. Was a big reason why they made the NCAA tournament all the way to the Sweet 16. He released a statement. I want to send a heartfelt thank you to the University of Arkansas, Coach Cal, staff, teammates, fans, everybody. Memories recreated and the lessons we learned will always hold a special place in my heart. Thiero does have one additional year of eligibility if he wants it, but it's unclear if he intends to maintain his college eligibility or will just sign with an agent and say, that's it, I'm going to the draft. Asa Newell, Georgia star forward, he decided to declare for the 2025 NBA draft as well. So not a surprise there. And then in the portal, Kentucky, they landed Jaden Quaintance from Arizona State forward, who will play a sophomore season in Lexington. He was previously committed to Kentucky and John Calipari was still there, but ended up enrolling at Arizona State for his freshman year. Very young, not eligible for the NBA draft yet, but is widely expected to be one of the top players in the 2026 draft. Averaged 9 points, 8 rebounds per game, made the Big 12 all-defensive team as a freshman at Arizona State. So he's recovering from an ACL injury or surgery he had last month, but his father told ESPN doctors expect him to be ready to go for the start of next season. So keep an eye on that. Big pickup there for Mark Pope and company. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to every dayers. Keep coming back and checking us out. And hey, for your second listen, you check out Locked On NFL Draft. They're talking all the latest on draft prospects, getting you guys ready for the upcoming NFL draft. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Everybody have a great day. And hey, we'll come back tomorrow. We'll talk some more football, among other topics as well, right here on Locked On SEC.